So I want to share this quote because I felt it was very relevant for this Are You Core Leadership Conference, because this conference is about growth. It's about development. And the quote is that the illiterate of the 21st century aren't those who can't read and write, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think that's appropriate to all of us because many of my LegalShield veterans that have been in the business for years, maybe we've been doing things the same way for a long time, and so we figured it's working. But working isn't good enough to the standards that Mr. Bell, Mr. Mason, and the executive leadership have set up for us. And just because we've been doing something for a long time doesn't mean we've been doing it right. And so I counted 6 times today that I heard this phrase utilized: lead by example. So tonight, I'm going to ask your permission, leadership, to be that real friend and share with you what you need to know, which may not necessarily be what you want to hear. Is that okay with everyone? And so I may challenge some of the ideas you had in your mind in terms of leadership, in terms of growth, and the 10 core commitments. And so let's talk about this. In leadership, contrary to what we may have heard 6 times today, your example is not the most important thing. I'm curious, how many would agree with that statement? A few hands. How many would disagree with that statement? How many didn't hear the question? So here's the reality. In leadership, your example is not the most important thing. It is the only thing. So the question to ask ourselves as we're growing our business and building into these Super Saturdays, and that's my topic this evening, growing your team by inviting guests and associates to Super Saturdays. So what I want us to be mindful of, it's not, are we leading by example? We all are leading by example. The question is, what example am I modeling for my team? Because we can either be an asset for our team or a liability to them. See, we're an asset when we show up early, when we bring guests, when we bring a positive mental attitude, which, by the way, if you're newer, that's differently than positively having a mental attitude. When we sit on the front rows, when we take notes, when we interact with the speakers, when we build into events and promote as hard as we can to get as many people as possible. So what example are we modeling for our team? Next question. Would you want to follow a leader like you? That made me look in the mirror and realize I needed to get one of those check up from the neck ups, that I needed to get better. Are we the type of leader that other folks would look at and say, I want to model that gentleman or that young lady? While there are always somebody that's leading from the front, there's always somebody I can rely on. There's always somebody who is that model that I aspire to be like if I want to become an executive director. So key self-reflection questions. People do what they see and not what they hear. Now, some of these concepts, if you've been paying attention today, you'll realize have been repeated through different presenters on different slides. Some of us noticing that? Isn't that interesting? Because repetition is the mother of all learning. And repetition is the mother of skill. And so what I learned as a leader is that you must let your action be your instruction. We've all heard it said, I'd rather watch a leader than listen to one any day of the week. And so when it comes to Super Saturdays, we want to promote all of them equally, regardless of the speaker. Why is this critical? Because we probably have our favorite Super Saturday speakers that come to town from time to time, but our favorite speaker may not be the one that relates to all of our team members, because our team is built of a diverse group of personalities. And so if we want a diverse group of folks, their favorite speaker may not be our favorite speaker, and different speakers may impact different team members in a different way. Would you all agree with that? And so as a result, we can't play favorites. We must promote all Super Saturdays, because the one that you go to, you say, I'm really just here because Mr. Bell and the leadership team said I need to be at the Super Saturday. But somebody on your team can be so fired up from that presenter, and they got something, that one nugget to help unlock that combination that they were looking for success. Create marketplace unity. Here's a little bit of a challenging conversation. Sometimes we don't agree with the speaker selection that our network vice president and business vice presidents invite into our marketplace. But even if we don't agree, we must create unity within the marketplace, because that's the only way we're going to grow, is when we're together. You may not agree with whoever gets elected to be the next president of the United States, but regardless of that, you still have to respect the position. And so our network VPs and our business VPs have been appointed for a reason by the Platinum Council and the executive team. So even if we disagree, LegalShield leadership family, we still have to create marketplace unity and continue to promote. We also build into the next convention. This is critical. Oklahoma is coming up. Maybe we're having challenges with getting some of our team members to come out to the big event. Well, if we can get them to that local Super Saturday, give them the bigger vision, let the out-of-town guest speaker encourage them to go, let them hear from a third-party voice, maybe that will be the one thing that influences them to go to Oklahoma City, and that's your next executive director leg. What you do will duplicate, good or bad. I didn't like this one. You know why? Because I was the guy that would sometimes show up for the briefing late at the Super Saturday thinking, I really just need to be there for the training portion. As long as I get there in time to do my testimonial. Hello. Oh, you don't have to like me. I'm here to be an effective teacher, not to be your best friend. So I'm just going to speak the reality I see, because I was that guy. I was the guy saying, if our marketplace is putting on a performance club event, I don't need to go to that event. It's a far drive away. There's traffic. I got to wake up the next morning and drive to a Super Saturday. I was a victim of what they call excuse-itis, also known as the failure disease. And I had to do some mental inventory and say, everything will duplicate, good or bad. Our team will duplicate 100% of what we do wrong and only 50% of what we do right. Promoting events is the highest paid skill in network marketing. So if there's one thing to become fanatical about, it's getting people to events. Using third party, using the conference calls, using the websites, using your own best influence, how to win friends and influence people to encourage them for their own good, because we know that is the highest paid skill in our profession. Inventory and inspection questions to ask monthly. First of all, how many associates and guests do you have from your team at your local Super Saturday? We got to know this number, because we're all business owners. And we can't grow something we can't manage. And we can't manage something we can't count. So we must take inventory and inspection. Next question is, how many legs are represented? Don't fall victim to the one-leg syndrome. You got this mantra, I got 20 people here. Well, if it's all in one leg, the likelihood of you going platinum is probably not the greatest. So how many legs are represented? And number 3, what other markets do you have team members in that are attending Super Saturdays as we continue to build a business that crosses North America? Leadership questions. Number 1, are your numbers at the Super Saturday growing or declining? And most importantly, why? See, everything rises and falls on leadership. That's the point of this conference. And what I realize is an organization will never grow bigger than the person who's building it. So if we want a big business, we've got to become big. We've got to not only take inventory, but take responsibility for our results and set goals, benchmarks on a monthly basis so we can be growing these numbers. Here's a key lesson in growing our Super Saturdays and our LegalShield businesses. We must do one of two things. Either magnify our skills or modify our goals. And I would like to suggest that it's worth it to go through the discipline of skill development, because skill makes labor more valuable. We don't just need more memberships, we need more skills, because sales are temporary, skills are permanent. Number 2, what we've been hearing about the entire conference. Who are you developing to be the next you? You want to teach them to promote and take inventory with their team. So now you're creating some duplication. Now we're getting some of that geometric progression that we hear about, that multiplication effect. So who is your next replacement? Mr. Rousseau did a phenomenal job talking about that successors. And Mr. Self taught me years ago, success is not success unless you have successors. So if we want legacy leadership, if we want a solid financial foundation and build a financial wall around our family that nothing can get through, we got to create layers of leadership. Wait a minute. Isn't the company developing leaders at all levels? Is that called a clue? Hello. Taking notes, I got you. Leadership is developed, not discovered. Here's what I learned the hard way. Sometimes I was so anxious to help people, I would handicap them. Here's the lesson I learned. When you help, you can handicap. When you develop, you empower. So we're not in the helping business, we're in the development business. Does that make sense to everyone? Because this is not an entitlement-driven culture. I think Mr. Bell has made that clear. We are a performance-based culture. Apply the 80-20 rule and invest your time where it is deserved. The late, great Jim Rohn said it best. Spend time where it's deserved, not where it's needed. So if 80% of the people do only 20% of the work, but 20% of the people do the bulk 80% of the work, we must be thoughtful about who we're investing our individual time so we can raise up that next level of leadership. I want to close out with a few final thoughts. First one is this. The sign of maturity is when you stop making excuses and start making changes. That's what this event is all about. See, I was the person that had all these explanations. You know what I realized? Excuses don't explain and explanations don't excuse. As a matter of fact, excuses are useless. They are tools of the incompetent used to build monuments of nothingness, and those who use them frequently seldom amount to anything. So let's get rid of the excuse mindset, the blame mindset, and as leaders take responsibility for everything that happens, good or bad. The biggest room in the world, it's not a master bedroom in a mansion. The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. C-A-N-I, constant and never-ending improvement. My hope for all of us as leaders is we continue to sharpen that axe, that we don't stop growing, because in life we're either growing or dying. So constant and never-ending improvement. One of the greatest rewards in life is living up to the expectations you have of yourself. Coming out of this RU Core conference, I expect growth from my marketplace. I expect growth for LegalShield. I expect growth for our team. And I hope we all adopt that mindset, because collectively 1,000 leaders that expect more of themselves, when we grow together, collectively we help accomplish Vision 2020, because we raise the expectation.